Consumers are bombarded by digital marketing messages daily. Business owners are aware that digital marketing is essential to their growth and survival. This show will explain digital marketing and the fundamentals of using SEO, which is better known as search engine optimization. Stay tuned for the answers on this episode of SCORE Business TV. Welcome to SCORE Business TV, sponsored by Wells Fargo. In this series, experts share their opinions with business owners and entrepreneurs on a variety of topics. Today's focus is digital marketing and search engine optimization, also known as SEO. My expert guest today is Nabil Freij. In 1996, Nabil started and still owns Global Vision, a translation and software localization service. Nabil is a certified SCORE mentor and the author of Enabling Globalization. He's trilingual and holds a BS in electrical engineering from Northeastern University and an MS from Brown University, and on top of that, an MBA from Bryant University. Nabil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
You're welcome. Nabil, what is digital marketing?
Well, even in this digital world, the principles that you and I learned in business school regarding marketing still apply. What digital marketing brought is a couple of very important nuances. One, with the advent of the internet, there is a slew of new digital marketing channels that have been created since the 90s. And because they are digital, that enables marketeers to keep track of data, analyze it, and that will enable them to optimize and streamline their marketing campaigns so they can improve their return on investment.
And let me ask you about this. There's a lot of different channels. So what channels are there?
Right. So all these channels, basically, their role is to drive traffic to your website. For instance, organic traffic. This is when somebody goes on Google or any other search engine, enters in a set of keywords, key phrases, or even voice commands, where they get a list of websites. When they click on it, they end up on that website. That's considered an organic traffic or organic search. Another one is potentially direct traffic. If somebody comes and visits our website, for instance, at minnesota.score.org, just by typing that domain into a browser, that is considered direct traffic. That is extremely important. It basically a function of brand building. Another one is referral traffic. So if you're browsing any website online and you run across a link and you click on that link and that takes you to another website, that's a referral. That's also extremely important for many reasons. There are additional digital marketing channels like social media, for instance, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, email channels. When you send out your email blast, typically they contain links that bring traffic back to your website. That is considered email traffic, as well as advertising traffic like pay-per-click. With all these different channels, companies can reach their target audience very effectively.
Would an affiliate program be considered a channel?
Yes, definitely. That's another way of reaching, like Ebates, for instance, or Groupon, or through Amazon or eBay.
Okay, so you mentioned a bunch of different channels. Is there one that's more important than the others?
They're all very important. Probably the organic search or organic traffic is the most coveted because of the perception that people have about it, that it's free. But what I tell my SCORE clients is that you got to think about your digital marketing strategy as a scalable engine of growth. And that engine has multiple cylinders. So the social media channels each represent a different cylinder. The more cylinders you have in an engine, the more robust and the more powerful it would be. So you want to try to implement as many of those channels as possible. But when you get started as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, you can't obviously focus on all these channels at the same time. You have to pick and choose. And what I tell the entrepreneur is look inwards, think about what your strengths are, and pick the channel that suits your strength. So for instance, if you are an extrovert and you like to network and connect with people, perhaps social media is the optimal channel that you should pursue first. If, however, you are an introvert with a knack for writing, maybe a keyword-driven digital content strategy that leads to organic traffic would be the ideal channel for you. But what's even more important than picking a certain channel is to know what your USP is.
Okay, so explain what USP is and why is that important for digital marketing?
So USP is the unique selling proposition. The business model canvas and the lean canvas both talk about the value proposition, how every business should have a value proposition. I'd like to go further and say that value proposition or that selling proposition should be unique. When you have a unique selling proposition, you're basically raising your content over and above the white noise that's prevalent on cyberspace. For you to be able to rank on the first page of Google, you have to offer something unique that nobody else offers. And it's extremely important for you to get on the first page of Google because that drives 99% of the organic traffic to a website. So for any entrepreneur, basically, that is looking at driving traffic to their website, they need to make sure that they find something unique and articulate it well into their content.
I thought it was really interesting when you mentioned that if you're an introvert or an extrovert. I've never heard anything like that before, but you're absolutely right. It's I mean, I do a lot of writing myself, but yet I'm definitely an extrovert, so I can kind of blend both combinations there.
You're the best of both worlds.
There you go. Are there other important elements to a successful digital marketing strategy?
Right, so you could have a unique selling proposition, but if you don't have a target market that is interested in your unique selling proposition, you're not getting any traffic, you're not going to get any business. So what you need to know is identify who your target market is, and I like to call it the DTP. You need to define the target personas. So who's your customer? And when I say who's your customer, I don't really mean you should know them by name. You should know them by persona. Try to define who that target market is as best as you could. And that target market typically is not just the purchaser, the person that buys your product, but it's also their influencers and the end users, the people that end up using the product.
You're referring to demographics and psychographics, correct?
Correct, Dennis.
Okay, and by psychographics, for the benefit of our audience, I'm referring to the things that relate to a person's life, such as if they're a golfer, maybe they drink red wine on Thursdays, or they like reading certain types of magazine, like Food and Wine or Sports Illustrated, and that kind of thing.
Right, and that's why social media channels are extremely important because they keep track of the habits of everybody.
Okay, so let's get down to the meat of this topic, which is what is SEO? Why don't you give us a good definition on that, and then tell us the ins and outs of it.
Okay, that's a good segue into getting into all the different digital marketing channels. Search engine optimization is basically modifying content that's online in order to present it in a better light, make it look more valuable in the eyes of search engines. So marketeers like to search engine optimize their web content, for instance, because by doing that, they're increasing the probability and the chance for that content to show up on the first page of Google. I mean, that's basically the most important thing. By getting it on the first page of Google, they're standing a chance of getting 99% of organic traffic to their website. And when they get that traffic to their website, they could work on converting it into leads or into sales.
And how does keyword strategies affect that process?
Right, so keywords are extremely important in that process. I tell my SCORE clients, you have to make sure that the keywords become the DNA of your content. You have to build a list of the keywords that your defined target persona has used. If you have a unique selling proposition, and if you know who the target market is, you could pretty much come up with a list of these keywords. Once you come up with a list of that keyword, then what you got to do is either modify your content or enable your content with these keywords, so you stand a much better chance of being found online when people use these keywords in the searches.
Okay, so give me an example. I understand there's a difference. There's keywords that are maybe one or two words, and then there's like three or more words, and that's different, isn't it?
Correct. So for smaller businesses, it's very important for them to focus on what we call the long tail of the keywords. This is basically 3 or more words that are used in one keyword. The popular keywords are typically 1 or 2 words. Popular keywords are much more frequently used online than long-tail keywords. So they drive a lot of traffic. However, they are very competitive. So if you're just getting started, if you just built a website, it's very hard for you to show up on the first page of Google using these popular keywords. It's better to focus on long-tail keywords. And I tell my clients you should prefer to show up on the first page of Google 2 or 3 times a day rather than showing up all day long on the 5th or 6th or 7th page of Google. Because by showing up on the first page of Google, you could drive organic traffic to your website. I could give you an example if you like.
Yes, please.
For instance, let's say a business owner wants to search about a small business online. If they enter small business in a search engine, the first listing on the first page of Google that shows up is sba.gov. This is the Small Business Administration. It's a multi-billion-dollar government organization. It's got a very high authority domain, and it also has small business in its name, which helps quite a bit. So rightly, in the United States, if you do that search, it should show up first. However, if you refine your search even more by searching, for instance, for small business mentoring, if you're seeking some mentoring help, then the SCORE.org website, which is our national organization's website, will show up first on Google. If the business owner refines the search even further and searches for small business mentoring in Sarasota, suddenly the Minnesota.score.org website will show up, ranking first on Google. And the more refined your search is, the longer the keywords are, the more likely that you find the actual information that you're looking for.
So it's a more relevant hit if it's your website and they're using Longtail and they get to you for the key words that you want to rank for, then it's going to be a more relevant potential client.
Exactly, and what your goal is should driving relevant and important visitors to your website, not just any kind of traffic.
Can you explain a little bit about on-page optimization and off-page optimization?
Okay, so on-page optimization is implementing the commonly accepted practices in the industry in order to make your content rank better on search engines. So for instance, you could go to your website content and identify the keywords that you want to use and use those keywords in any of the pages or create new pages around them. Those keywords have to exist in the title of the page. They have to be embedded in headers. They got to be also in the body of the text. Also, it helps to have them in the meta tags. And this is code that is embedded in the HTML of the pages. And there are tools, actually, that help you do that. So you don't really need to know how to write HTML or code it. But for instance, meta description tags, you need to have the keyword in it. The title tag, the image alt tag, for instance. If you follow all these standard practices, then what you've done is enabled your content so it is better ranked on Google. That is what's called on-page optimization.
And that gets a little technical with HTML, and that's hypertext markup language, as I recall from my studies. And right. But it's confusing, and I'm sure a lot of our audience may not have a clue of what we're really talking about. But if they can kind of hang in there and follow basically what we're covering here, I think they'll learn a lot. So what about off-page optimization?
Right, so off-page is the opposite of the coin. Here, what you have to do is influence content that you don't really have control over that belongs to somebody else. And this is extremely important. Just to give you a little background, in the early and mid-90s, when the early search engines emerged, basically the way they rank pages is by looking at the metadata, the meta descriptions that is embedded in the code, which the content provider created that data. Then Google came into the picture in the late 90s, and they turned the industry upside down. And they said, wait a second, we're not just going to go with the way you promote your own content. We're going to look at how other people promote your content or how other people refer to it. So just like with scientific journals, you identify the journals with the highest authority, the ones that contain receive the most citations. Same thing, Google said, now we're going to look at how many websites are going to cite your website. And the more higher authority website that cite your website, the higher authority your website becomes. And here, a citation online is actually a backlink. So what you want to do is you want to pursue aggressively going out and building backlinks back to your website, because that's how you elevate the authority of your website. And as you elevate the authority of your website, it's like a rising tide. It's going to lift all the ships, and those ships are your web pages. So it will raise the authority of all your web pages.
Is there any kind of hierarchy of authority, like Google is like maybe the top one for argument's sake, or maybe YouTube? Is there a number assignment to those, or a percentage, or how does that work?
That's right. So Google ranks pretty much all pages, and Alexa as well. Amazon's Alexa rank all these pages, and that ranking is actually published, so you could tell where your pages are ranked. But yeah, when Google came into the picture, they basically started to establish kind of a pecking order of the different domains and different websites. And by ranking all these websites, they could define and determine how to gauge the value of each website and how to assign an authority to it.
Okay, so for example, a local newspaper, would that have more authority than just somebody issuing a press release or printing something on their website?
Yes, definitely. So newspapers, periodicals like magazines, even local TV stations, they have websites that relate to their stations. Those are typically pretty high authority.
And how about just even joining your Chamber of Commerce or something, and they publish a directory and your name is in it? Does that rank?
Right. So that's another easy way, for instance, to gain a backlink. If you join your local Chamber of Commerce, most of the time they will add a link back to your website. That will give you a decent backlink to the website that adds value.
Okay. What about black hat optimization? What does that mean?
Okay, so black hat is pursuing tactics or techniques that kind of try to gimmick search engines or trick them into believing that your content either has higher value or is of higher authority. There are different ways of doing that. Search engines are getting wiser to these tactics, and they can identify when that happens, and they will typically penalize the site by lowering its authority and lowering the ranking that it achieves.
Way back when websites first came into vogue, people would put their words throughout the document, and they'd use white on white so you didn't see them, but they were there, and the search engines picked it up. Is that considered a negative or a black hat?
Absolutely.
Technique?
Those tactics maybe used to work in the 90s. They are definitely not working today.
Okay. So what kind of SEO tools are out there for someone to know how well they're doing in their different marketing campaigns?
Right. So there's a lot of really great tools right now in the industry. And actually, many of them are free. For instance, Google gives you Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and the Webmaster Tools. And I would recommend for any marketing professional to study those tools, learn how to use them, and use the information that's on it, because it's extremely relevant and valuable. For instance, Google Analytics will tell you how many visitors you get every day, how long they stay on your content, what content they consume, which content they bounce off of, for instance. You could monitor and see the progression of these visitors through your websites. You could see if they're converting or not. And by converting means, are you capturing that lead? Are you capturing the sale? You could set up goals on Google Analytics and track them and monetize them to see if those campaigns that you're pursuing are generating enough returns on your investment. On Google Search Console, they also tell you what keywords people are using to find your content, what content they're finding, where it's ranking on Google. So you could analyze all that and determine ways to improve the optimization of your pages so you stand a better chance of ranking on the first page of Google. And Google Webmaster Tools also give you a lot of tools that help you fix the technical aspect of your website so you're not penalized for having broken code or broken pages.
And this is all free.
That is all free.
Wow.
There are paid tools, obviously. You subscribe to them. It's under $100 a month, and they are extremely helpful as well. But I like to get my information from the horse's mouth. Google gets all the traffic. They keep track of all that data. I might as well get that data from them.
What would be some examples, though, of some of the paid tools that you could buy if you really wanted to spend a few bucks?
So I use SEMrush. That's a very popular tool out there. It costs about $70 per month. There's a tool called RFs. It started out as a tool to enable you to monitor what backlinks come to your website. There is a keyword finder, which is called KW Finder. And Moz also has some tools that are very useful.
So basically, it's confusing. So should somebody do this on their own, or should they hire an expert?
Right, so it depends. I tell my SCORE clients, look at where you are in your business. If you got a lot of time on your hands, and if you have the attitude and the aptitude to learn the stuff, you're the one with the vision to start the company. You're the one who is building that unique selling proposition. You're the one who knows who your target market is. You're the ideal person to sit down and try to create some of these channels. But as business picks up and as entrepreneurs and business owners start getting too busy with a lot of other functions, and I've been an entrepreneur and business owner for 22 years, and a lot of times I try to wear more hats than I could wear. So I know what it's like. Things will start falling through the cracks, particularly those strategic tasks, such as marketing, such as content creation, such as backlink building. And when that happens, my recommendation is seek professionals and outsource the work.
Yeah. And how do you know if you're getting a good provider? Because there's no real degree that I don't believe is an SEO degree. So how do you know who to hire?
Yeah, it's very hard. What you have to do is do your due diligence. So what I would do is I would go online and I would search for the companies that I am potentially considering hiring. And I will look at their websites and I will analyze them and I will see, are they actually practicing what they're preaching? Is their website showing up on the first page of Google or not? If it isn't, it's unlikely that they could get your pages to show up on the first page of Google. So that's the first thing that I would do. And then I will talk to them and I will gauge the questions that they would ask me. And if they indicate interest in trying to learn what my USP, my unique selling proposition is, and what my DTP, my defined target personas are, then I know they're homing in on what's important to build those appropriate channels. If they're not asking these questions, then that's a big red flag. And then the other thing that I would do is I will ask them, what is it that you're going to do for me? What kind of marketing channels are you going to build for me? And I tell my SCORE clients, the companies that are not willing to build content or backlinks for you, they're not going to add value for the long term.
So most people are not writers, and should they buy content from companies that create content? It's not really authentic, but can they do that? Does that work?
You could hire a ghostwriter that will create content for you, but they'd have to be properly directed. So that ghostwriter will have to have the set of keywords that you want them to use in the content. That's extremely important. That's why we talked about keywords early. You have to give them specific topics that your target audience is interested in reading about. So they have to write for your audience, not for just any audience. And then you have to review the content that they provide to you to make sure that it is fresh, that it is valid, that it is relevant, and that it's search engine optimized. And if you do all that, then that content will be useful.
What about length of content? What about number of pages or words, or the depth that they go into? And is more better than less? Is it better to have more articles than less articles, and should it be on the same topic? Some of that, if you could answer.
Yeah, so content is king, and the more content, in my view, the better. You could break it down into multiple pages if needed. You want to have a significant amount of content on your landing pages, and researchers found out that you should have anywhere around 1,900 words, so just under 2,000 words, if you want to stand a good chance at ranking on the first page of Google. So content volume is extremely important, and obviously the value. So you can't just fill it up with fluff. You got to make sure that you have the appropriate value inside.
So you hire a search engine optimization firm to help you out, and they help you with your keywords, and they help you with the content, and maybe they kind of guide you through the maze of what you need to do. How do you know if they're doing a good job?
In one word, metrics. So you have to keep track of the metrics. We talked about the fact that digital marketing is about the digital channels and the data that you're capturing and you're tracking, you're analyzing. Ask those experts to give you reports on a monthly basis and analyze these reports and make sure that you connect them to your KPIs, your key performance indicators. And by the way, SCORE mentors can do a really good job at helping you doing that. If those metrics end up improving your KPIs, if they end up improving the bottom line, then you will know that what you're doing with them is actually paying off.
Okay.
And it will take time for that to happen. It's not going to happen overnight.
Nabil, let's take an example of a client that might come to SCORE and says, look, I have a hair salon and I want to get more customers. I don't do any SEO. What should I do? How would you answer that?
Okay, so the first thing I do is look at their website. And I will run a quick audit on it with the tools that I have. If I have access to Google Analytics and Search Console, I could get a lot of information about where they're ranking on Google, what pages are ranking, and I could get a pretty good feeling of what should be done to take advantage of any low-hanging fruit that may be existing, where either on-page optimization can take place pretty quickly, so we could position that content in a better light with search engines. So for instance, if you have a website and your content is showing up on the third or fourth page of Google, what can we do? Can we modify some of the popular keywords that you're using on those pages to long-tail keywords? And by doing so and search engine optimizing for these long tails, can we push that ranking from the third page of Google to the second and then to the first? What kind of backlinks can we add in order to elevate the authority of this website? And I also look mechanically to see if there is any kind of technical issues impeding the website. Usually those would be in my recommendations to the client. And after investigating all these recommendations, we try to put together a strategy to execute it.
What do you do if someone comes to you and calls your emails and says, I can get you on the top page of Google, in a month?
Yeah, that's typically deceiving. They may be able to get you on the first page of Google in a month, but it's most likely for irrelevant keywords or keywords that will not lead to any organic traffic to your website. Nothing will take a month when it comes to search engine optimization. It's going to take months. And if you want to do it right, you want to get the proper content and you want to get the proper audience.
And in SCORE, you mentor clients that need help in this area, correct?
Yes.
And we charge them how much?
0.
Can't beat that. Nabil, I want to thank you for being our guest today on SCORE Business TV. You've done a fantastic job explaining a very, very complicated topic, search engine optimization.
My pleasure.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wells Fargo, in addition to Nabil. Please tune in for our next episode. Until then, this is Dennis Zink. Thank you and have a great day.